as per, thank you, Josh, as per, pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20, the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, this meeting of the Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater will be fully remote and accessible to the public via recording that'll be posted on the website following the meeting. A reminder, there's no in-person attendance permitted, and citizens who wish to tune in the meeting, it looks like we do have some citizens who are able to do so. And again, we'll be able to watch the recording that'll be posted at a later time. So with that said, I will take a motion to approve the minutes for the previous
Um,
meeting.
Mr.
well,
Murphy, if I
Yes,
may.
I
yes,
gotta,
Mr. Trigger.
I gotta open the meeting of the town council as well.
Oh,
Thank
yes,
you, Evan. Yeah.
go ahead.
So I will also call this session of the town council to order and go right ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. So now I'll accept a motion for the approval of the previous minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, I have can't see who that was, but could you repeat that
Dr.
one more
Perry
time?
and then Mr. Chase is the second.
Thank you. And because we're online, I'm just gonna do a roll call vote, please. Josh would be able to help with that.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Do you guys know if it has to be in the order as you are in town council?
No, you can as long as you get everyone's vote, you're good.
Okay. Counselor Murphy,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor Robinson.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
I vote yes too.
And
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr.
I'm
Fitzgibbons as
sorry.
well.
Okay, so the motion's passed. Thank you, Josh, for that. We'll move on to item C, Citizens Open Forum. Folks, just be reminded that to keep any comments to roughly 3 minutes, and that the ad hoc committee will not be responding to comments at this time. So if anybody would like to speak, you could either raise your hand. I think that would be the best here. If folks could issue that, or if you're unable to raise your hand on the digital platform, you could just simply come off mute and we'll try to manage that. Would any citizens like to speak? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to item D, items to be discussed. And so starting with a general discussion around the selection of a search firm. Just as a recap, we've received 3 completed proposals, which were reviewed by the ad hoc committee. Each were rated accordingly. We all submitted those rating forms. Those forms were reviewed, and then was a discussion in which we came to the conclusion of interviewing all 3 firms, which we did last week. So following those interviews, I think we could just have a general discussion based on people's ratings of the interviews, along with the forms that they've submitted previously, which I have in front of me if anybody has any questions or needs a refresher. Would anybody from the committee like to start the discussion?
We did have the Mr. Chair, if we can discuss the interviews that we did, or we could go back and review the phone calls that we made to what we all did individually. I know there was a summary that Debbie did for us. So I'm not sure what you might want to tackle first.
Yeah, I think it's probably best to start with the interviews, and then we could go to the references that the committee checked.
Sounds good. As far as the interviews go, I mean, I went through my notes from it. I mean, they were all relatively close and good. I again still seem to get a little bit more of a sense. I ranked Paradigm first, MRI second, and Grew White third. I just kind of liked Paradigm's overall presentation. I liked that they had more of an expansive team that would cover, I think, more ground. As far as they both propose anywhere from 12 to 16 week process. Actually, Paradigm was a little bit longer. They were 16 weeks, 12 to 13 for the other two. And just even referencing back to my, my reference calls that I made, all three people from a variety of towns had good reviews from each firm. I didn't have a negative one of any of my calls. But, in a close race, I had Paradigm ranked. I had 21 points, 19 for MRI and 18 for Grew White. So as far as any specifics on the actual interview, I just like the fact that they talked about talking to a lot of the department heads pretty completely. I think that was a big thing in my book to kind of get that feedback from as many department heads and town employees as possible. They talked about a community survey. They talked about a questionnaire that they could get as much input from the public as possible. So again, I know that's really important to those that have come to our meetings and the people who really want to have a say. And I stressed to them along the whole process here that we were going to get public feedback. They both definitely all stressed it, but I really felt that Paradigm kind of stressed it a little bit more. Other than that, again, they all were, they all had good presentations. I just, like I said, I went toward Paradigm a little bit more, but that's my opinion and the starts. I'll let another counselor take it from there.
Thank you, Dr. Perry.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to offer some observations as well.
Sure.
I'm actually very much in alignment with the comments that Councilor Perry just said as well. When I think about the proposals and reading through them initially, I had already, in terms of just based on the proposal alone, had ranked Community Paradigm first, the Municipal Resources second, and Grew White third. And I felt that the interviews actually lined in a similar fashion as well. There weren't any major surprises to me necessarily. I felt it was pretty consistent. And, all three firms definitely have a great breadth of experience, and all of them have principals that are very much experienced as themselves, of course, as town managers, town administrators, folks who have come from municipal government. So when it was, I think it was really important to look at those networking strategies, the community engagement piece, et cetera, the marketing. And I think for me, Community Paradigm Associates consistently remains strong in all of those key areas, and including the timeline. So I know that there was also a public comment in the previous call that I think it is actually important for us to also take into consideration that one of the firms, Municipal Resources, had actually, I believe that was the one, had actually recruited our former town manager into his new position. So that, that is certainly, I think, something to consider as well. But one thing I do want to probably just confirm as well in terms of any kind of follow-ups is I don't think that there was a clear explanation of why Community Paradigm actually almost did not participate in the RFP process. And for that, I just would want to really confirm that they, if that's the recommendation to go forward, I want to make sure that we really vet that, any concern there in terms of capacity, priority, et cetera, if that was indeed, any concern. But other than that, that's where I'm leaning as well. Thank you.
The only thing I'll say, Mr. Chair, on that was I did hear that I think a couple of the representatives of Paradigm might not have been available at the time, or that they thought they weren't going to be available at the time of the interview. So I think that's one of the reasons why they might have been pulling on out. But I think someone reached out to them and confirmed that of the time that the interviews are going to take place, so they realized that they could make it, so they put their name back in the ring for it.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. Yes, Councilor Chase.
Chairman, I'd be happy to give my comments. I did send to you today, by the way, my selections and my kind of my vote on the criteria involved. I needed to do that. I was not able to do that last week. I was actually out of town largely through the entire week, and during which period I also had no access to my town email, which I only resolved this morning by a visit to IT. That said, uh, in terms of my overall selection, uh, my choices do mimic those that we've already heard tonight. My first selection is with respect to community paradigm. My second choice, if you will, would be municipal resources. And in the third place, Grew White. I think that in the course of analyzing, interviewing the prospective firms and having an opportunity to think about their responses, my initial impression was validated, which you might remember I commented to the ad hoc committee. I felt that any one of the firms would do an exemplary job. They certainly all boasted great experience, and I felt very comfortable about all of them. And in fact, that very comment was echoed during the interview session, and I believe that was by Mr. White, who said that any of those firms who were being interviewed would serve us well. So I think that that certainly was, in my estimation, determined to be accurate. Um, Nonetheless, I think what was very persuasive to me overall, as you know, I had asked the introductory question as to experience with our particular form of government, council manager form of government. And I think the best overall response to that question I had heard from the parties was, in fact, by community paradigm. I noted the fact that, for example, Grew White had, Mr. White had um, rather dismissed that as a particularly relevant concern. I happen to think otherwise, and actually, that's just what community paradigm confirmed for me. They felt it actually did uh, serve an important function in the overall process, and they have that experience. I think to a degree that the other firms do not. So that was highly persuasive to me overall. With respect to many of the other criteria, uh, particularly community involvement, implementation. I found that the firms were, any differences were virtually indiscernible, uh, and very few exceptions. I did note that municipal resources, and I commented about this to the committee at one point previously, actually, as a practice, makes available an email address for purposes of the general public, which I thought was a very wise thing. And I thought, gee, that would be actually something we might encourage whomever we finally decide to select. We might urge them to adopt. Um, Nonetheless, again, my overall selection based on all the criteria is that community paradigm was the preferred choice in my estimation.
Thank you, Councilor Chase. Mr. Fitzgibbons.
Yes. Well, it's remarkable. I agree with the three other counselors. I think that all of the firms would do very well, and I think the town would be very well served given any of the firms being chosen. However, the most important thing to me is to feel like we have a good fit with that company that we choose. And I'm after the interviews, I was Paradigm, MRI, and GW in that order. So Um, those are my feelings. I don't want to keep going on. You know, it will be well served no matter what.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbons, and I can confirm with my own rankings that it's unanimous ranking with me. It was Paradigm, MRI, and White for me. And for me, Paradigm, I felt like had the most comprehensive approach to the process, including the department heads, their approach with the community. I think they really spoke deeply about how they would do those things. I liked that they had a dedicated staff member that was overseeing communications and marketing, which I think is really important as we try to reach out to our citizens in Bridgewater. And having that resource, there was a question that I had asked to um, a previous partner that we had interviewed earlier in the evening, and they didn't have an answer that I felt like was adequate to that question. And so for those reasons, I thought Paradigm led the way with both their rankings, their interview, and actually their references that I did as well too. So I felt good about them being my number one with MRI and White following. Would folks like to add anything additional to their rankings? I think it's this may make the process a little easier considering we're all on the same page here. I don't know if there's anything additional to add or any reservations folks have with next steps. I know Councilor Robinson brought up the fact that there was some maybe confusion in the beginning with Paradigm, but it maybe had to do with scheduling that they've since confirmed. I think that's, maybe something to keep in mind and as we go out throughout the process. And um,
The only thing I'll also mention just about Paradigm and that I liked that was different from the other two firms was their connections with Suffolk. They seem to have their, they do a lot of teaching. They connect with a lot of people through their involvement with Suffolk. So whether it's someone on the younger side or some experienced professors or teachers that are involved in the program, I think they've just got a lot more connections and feet to the ground in the field than I think the other two firms with their involvement with Suffolk participation. So I just thought that was another thing that made them stand out for me.
Councilor Chase.
Thank you. One additional comment I guess I would make, just because it was something in the course of my references that reference checks that did come up. I had spoken with in the town of Foxborough. That was Stephanie McGowan, the select board chair, and Foxborough had very enthusiastically supported community paradigm. And what I found certainly comforting to know was that Foxborough had an unusual but a potentially disastrous situation in that a candidate had been accepted and had actually commenced the position of town manager. And I've forgotten the precise details in terms of timing, but within a matter of weeks, chose to leave that position. And uh, Miss McGowan had informed me that it was just immediately apparent to community paradigm that it was a situation that called for them to uh, provide new candidates, go through the process start to finish once again, and to incur no additional charges for with respect to the town. Now, I'm not sure, and perhaps their contractual arrangement actually required that, but nonetheless, she was very forthcoming in providing to me details that suggest that it was a very smooth transition from what would have been otherwise, I think, a very awkward and potentially catastrophic situation. So she felt it especially important that I know that particular detail.
Sure. Anything additional from the committee regarding the discussion? If not, maybe we could move to potential next steps. So I think next steps would be to work with our admin is out for the council to work with maybe our current acting town manager to discuss. Were you gonna say something, Dr. Perry?
I just, well, what I was gonna say is, as far as procedurally goes, I believe the next step that since we all kind of concur on a ranking, we were to submit our rankings to the acting town manager, who will then open up the financial portion of the process, and then she will let us know from there where we go as a procurement officer. What the since we're unanimous pretty much on our rankings, she'll take it from there as far as the potential hiring process. But yeah, so since we basically had to come to a decision tonight on our rankings, which it seems like we have, so I think we just need to submit that now to Blythe for her to do her portion of things.
So that said, Dr. Perry, if I may, I'd make a motion to recommend to the procurement officer, subject to verification of the bid and successful negotiation. It is the committee's recommendation to engage Community Paradigm as the search firm for the new town manager.
I would second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Fitzgibbon, second by Councilor Chase. Can we do a roll call vote, please, Josh?
Counselor Murphy,
Yes. Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, so now that we have those in motion for next steps, I will connect with the acting town manager to share that information with her. Would we be open to scheduling our next meeting? I know there are a few holiday coming up. We do have a town council meeting coming up, so I think it would be great to get something on the books for our next steps there.
Just grab a calendar here. So obviously Veterans Day is the 11th, so that's going to be difficult. Let's see. 4th, 11th. I don't know. I mean, if it's possible, maybe we could do the 4th if we're doing it via. Well, how much time does Blythe need? This is gonna take. I'm not sure how long our steps are gonna take. Because again, obviously, we don't want to push this too far down the road here as far as engaging with a firm to get the ball rolling here. I think we might need to just touch base with Blythe on a time frame of her portion of things. That way there we can set up a next meeting time as soon as possible, after whatever time she needs to do her part.
I think that's fair. I can give her a call tomorrow and share this with her, and then ask roughly the time frame for that. Would folks be opposed to holding just so we can hold it, especially the 18th of November? Perhaps that could be our first contact with the firm if we have all our paperwork in line by then. Perhaps we could just plan to tentatively meet on the 18th during the evening with the potential search firm if all goes well. We don't need to confirm that now, but just for scheduling wise, folks could just hold that time.
Yep, sounds reasonable.
And if not, Dr. Perry, maybe we could meet to your suggestion next Monday if everything does align perfectly.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Are folks opposed to doing the 18th in person at the town hall?
I'm good. Yeah, hang on. Sorry.
I'd actually prefer it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so we'll plan on at least November 18th in person at the Bridgewater Town Hall. And I will keep the committee updated in regards to the status after speaking with Ms. Robinson, our acting town manager, tomorrow.
That sounds great.
Sounds like a plan.
Right.
Okay, if all is well with that, I'll move on to item E, citizens' comments. If there are any comments from the citizens, again, I would just ask to keep it 3 minutes. And remind folks that the committee will not respond to any questions this evening, but will allow the time for citizens to speak. If folks could raise their hand, if not able to raise their hand, if they could just simply come off mute, and we'll take it from there. Not seeing any comments, and so we will move to Item F. I have a motion to adjourn.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Dr. Perry has to
Yeah.
close the town council meeting.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yes,
was-
thank you, Josh.
Yep.
So I'll ask for a motion to close the town council meeting, please.
So moved.
Second,
And second. There you go. Roll call vote, please, for me, Josh.
And just to confirm, does this need to include Counselor McGrath and Counselor Lindy
Yes.
as well? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Counselor Murphy,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
yes.
Counselor Robinson,
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgibbons.
Oh, no, he's not a counselor.
I'm sorry. uh, Counselor Lindy,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Right,
you,
so we are
Josh.
now in adjournment from the town council meeting. You can now close the ad hoc committee, Paul.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. And Josh, with roll call vote, please.
Counselor Murphy,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you all.
Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye.